Mojo, fanboys and fangirls. It's Jared here with Fanboys Forever with another review from the G.I. Joe Classified series of figures. Of course, G.I. Joe fans have speculated and wondered for years and years if Hasbro would ever make the leap to the 6-inch scale, and finally, here we are, and in the second major wave of figures to boot. So, we have the Cajun Marine himself, Gung-Ho. And I don't know about you, and whenever I look at other G.I. Joes, they might be tough, but he's Gung-Ho. Anyway, if you've been as big a G.I. Joe fan as me for as many years as I've been, it's hard not to go ahead and pick out Gung-Ho as one of my absolute favorite G.I. Joes ever. So I gotta say, I have been very, very nervous about what exactly the direction was going to be that Hasbro was going to go in with the character. And it's not that I don't implicitly trust them either, because I really love what they've done with the rest of the classified line so far. But there's always the possibility of really, messing something up when it comes to a character as classic as the Ultimate Marine, Gung-Ho. Really, before Sergeant Slaughter, before those other heavy hitter kinds of characters, Gung-Ho is one of the original big heavies, in my opinion, right alongside Roadblock and any of the other kind of big characters. And to me, he represents this larger-than-life persona. If they had gotten Gung-Ho wrong, I would have been devastated. But hey, here we are, and let's find out if Hasbro was able to do Gung-Ho justice. First things first, let's take a very quick look at the packaging, because I hate it when reviewers spend forever on packaging. This is the really cool artwork that you get. And honestly, this is awesome. It's kind of like an oil-based looking paint job, and it's super detailed. I absolutely love it. There's almost kind of a Danny Trejo look to Gung-Ho, which is cool, you know? I like it. On the side, we get a little bit more, and it looks like Gung-Ho is number 7. So that's pretty much all there is that's unique about the packaging. Moving on to the figure itself, what can I say about Gung-Ho? We have a whole history of Gung-Ho figures, from the vintage line to the 90s stuff, all the way into today. And when you look at figures that they've done in the past, like the 50th anniversary Gung-Ho, this is an incredible homage to the very original Gung-Ho figure, only in the big updated modern kind of style. But then you look at this, and it's not really that far removed from that original style. The only thing that's really missing is that baby blue and the kind of more outrageous tattoo. But I really don't know how much closer Hasbro can go when it comes to homaging an original character. I realize that the vest is kind of techy and updated, but I mean, clearly this is Gung-Ho. Obviously, this is Gung-Ho. To any G.I. Joe fan, this is the Ultimate Marine. Very, very little has been done to modernize him, but I absolutely love what has been done. And I know that there's still going to be people that's going to complain, and they're going to say, oh, but he's got these sci-fi looking weapons, and they're like Nerf guns, because they literally are Nerf guns, by the way. This is also Gung-Ho, people. So do you really want to go down that road of, oh, he's too unrealistic, he's too sci-fi looking? Guys, G.I. Joe is more than just the original lineup of characters. G.I. Joe is a huge variety of flavors and styles. And if you take one Gung-Ho at face value, you have to take them all at face value. I realize that there's always going to be preference for the original, but let's just see if this figure can do it justice. So let's take a closer look at the sculpt itself. So as we can see, Gung-Ho's head sculpt is actually very realistic. Everything from the paint to the sculpt all just really works together to give this very realistic picture. It's very, very convincing to be kind of an exaggerated, super like hyper-realistic portrait, almost like he's one of these like overly detailed wax museum sculpts. And I actually think it really works for him, because Gung-Ho is not really supposed to be your average Joe, har. He is supposed to be like the epitome of the, you know, all-out Gung-Ho, if you will, Marine. And I think this really personifies this with a huge chin and all the kind of folds in the skin. I think it's just right on. Even the back of the head, look, they actually sculpted in all of those folds that you would see when someone shaves their head. I mean, that's some detail right there. The ears, the jaw, the handlebar mustache, everything is right on. Even their digital paint process worked out really well for my particular sample. Really like how the eyes look. I think they look terrific. Now, this hat as well has some great sculpting, but the one thing I wish is that there was some kind of wash that could have brought the logo on the hat. I think that would have helped it a little, and I'm probably just going to go in and add that. I think any action figure collector worth their salt can mix up a little black wash and just put right in there. Shouldn't be a problem. I think that'll help it a lot. But check this out. Get ready. Oh my gosh. Gung-Ho now sort of has hair. This is a very funny thing for me to see Gung-Ho with some hair on his head. Keep in mind, people, that what I'm used to with Gung-Ho is this look right here. Gung-Ho without a speck of hair on his head. But Hasbro, I suppose, is wanting to appease the young folk and kind of give him more that modern faux hawk look, if you will. I can't believe I used the term faux hawk in a G.I. Joe review, but here we are. Is that representative of kind of my visual identity for Gung-Ho? No, not really. But here's the thing. I didn't really plan on having the hat off of his head anyway. So does it really matter to me? Not necessarily. It's just something neat that we can use to differentiate this version of Gung-Ho. And I think that they've implied that, who knows, we may even see another version of Gung-Ho that doesn't have the faux hawk. So if their recent roadblock is any indication, they are totally open to giving completely new head sculpts to the core G.I. Joe members. So moving on down, that's enough about the head. We have this cool vest right here. And you can see that the vest takes a lot of inspiration from modern sources. It kind of has that superhero weave to the fabric that we see in a lot of Marvel Universe films. We also have lots of pouches and kind of techie bits. We have this little thingy right here that's on all of the classified stuff. You can see that my paint is actually a little off there. It's kind of a little bit down, but I don't really care. And some people I think are irritated by the little techie bits, but I actually like them. I think they're neat, and they kind of give the team a uniform look. Say, for instance, if we have Duke right here, side by side, they both kind of have that glowing, pulsating bit. So it kind of gives them a more uniform, like, team look. And so far, all the main members of G.I. Joe have that blue light right there. So it's kind of neat. It kind of unifies them in a way, because really, their looks are totally disparate, if not for that. Moving on to the back of it, I'll get this backpack out of the way. We'll talk about it and accessories, of course. We can see all this cool detail back here. They even went to the trouble of doing quite a bit of paint hits back here with kind of the silver. And the silver isn't applied very neatly. As you can see, it kind of, I don't know, it isn't very straight on the back in this little section. But the backpack covers it up anyway, so I don't really care too much. There's also silver trim around this part, and it looks like there's some kind of strap back there. And there's even some grenades hung up here. And that's keeping in line with the grenades that were on the original Gung-Ho figure, but they're placed differently. Moving on to the arms, we can see that he's wearing this really cool gauntlet that is actually a separate piece. I love this thing. It kind of gives him more visual identity, but guess what? If you don't love this thing, all you got to do is just remove the hand, slide this off, and boom. It's like it was never there. So, if you want Gung-Ho to be more plain Jane without that thing, it doesn't have to be there, but man, I want to keep it on there. It's really nice. It kind of ties together the silver parts with the rest of the figure, so I have no problem with that at all. He also has an elbow pad over here, and it's not just a generic elbow pad. There's actually some pretty cool sculpting right there on the back of it. I am not real crazy about this thing, though, because it's pretty loose. So you can see that just working with the figure, it kind of goes in places it shouldn't, and I'm always having to readjust it. So I wish that fit a little more tightly, but it's great for people that hate it. You can take it right off. The gloves are also pretty neat. They're actually fairly detailed. You can see that there's like some little knuckles sculpted onto there. There's some line work. Now, this vest is pretty much completely removable. You can just angle the arms back, and we'll do that so we can get a better look at the chest sculpt. Gung-Ho has been working out furiously. He's been on a water and bacon diet for the past 10 weeks to get ready for this review. So here he is. This is a straight up reuse of what's under Roadblock's vest. This is just the same body, clearly cast in a lighter flesh tone, of course, but this is the same thing. And it works super well for Gung-Ho. And I think it actually looks fairly decent without the vest. Now, a lot of people were a little critical when they noticed that the paint application up here is not that more traditional looking Marine Corps logo. But if you even look at the original Gung-Ho figure, that's not exactly the traditional Marine Corps logo either, because that's copyrighted. So it's not like Hasbro can just put the official Marine Corps logo all over their stuff. I really like what they did here. It looks pretty modern. It kind of reminds me of some of the tattoos we saw in the Expendables movies, actually. So I actually really like that. You can see that on the back, there's not any kind of other paint application. It's just more muscle. I think it does look really good like this. He certainly, if you want to get like him training or something, I think it actually holds up pretty well without the vest, but I do prefer the vest on. Moving on down, we can actually get a look at these pants here. These are pretty much the exact same pants that we got in terms of sculpt with Roadblock. So there's not really many changes here. There is one change with this. It doesn't have the big knee pad sculpt. I am really glad that he doesn't have so much techiness on his knees, like any kind of random knee pads or anything. I think this gauntlet here more than makes up for that. But I do notice that it is black and the other one is just this olive tone. And of course there's a camo kind of pattern going around. But I actually like that because as you can see, it looks like there's some kind of brace on his knee there, which is a little more visually welcome than just some jarring golden knee pad. Of course, I never had much of a problem with the gold pads and all that from the first wave. So, you know, either way, but I prefer this for sure. Moving on down, we do have the Techie boots, which are exactly the same sculpt as the ones that came on Roadblock, but it does appear that Hasbro definitely listened to that initial outcry, and these are just about as inconspicuous in armor pieces as you could possibly put on one of these figures. They're silver, but that's it. Everything else is just the standard black boots, and I don't see really much of anyone having a problem with them going as subdued as that. Of course, if these guys are modern soldiers, they're going to be wearing some armor plating. I hope they are, but then again, maybe Gung-Ho, maybe, ought to look into some sort of, armor to cover his chest. You know what's funny? On the initial art on the box, it shows him wearing a tank top, actually. And clearly they rejected that and went with something that was a lot more classic. So I actually do appreciate that. I think that they were trying to please fans with that move. He also has this interesting brace right here. And if you look closely, these are grenades. And if you turn it this way, it's a little more obvious. You can see the pins at the top. You can see kind of the canisters. And they're on this big harness, which I'm sure is removable. So you can just slide it over. You can do whatever you want with it. I love this thing. I hope that we're going to be seeing it reused again somewhere in the line. Moving to the back, nothing really surprising there. We do have the silver boot detail that just continues. Overall, I think Gung-Ho has a terrific look. And I think that it's not only pretty true to the original figure, but I think it updates it and modernizes it in all of the right ways. And I think it's a much more successful modernization than what we had in that first wave. And you better believe that I think that this is a result of Hasbro taking notice of that initial outcry with some of those more outrageous colors. Moving on, we will have a look at the articulation. There's really nothing too surprising here. I will say that this part with the diaphragm functions a lot better than what I got on the Storm Shadow, the Amazon Storm Shadow, where it was just so loose. This seems to have plenty of range, so he can look down like this. There's no kind of looseness to it like was on that Storm Shadow joint. The actual waist itself can pivot quite a bit. So that in conjunction with the diaphragm can get him to do just about whatever you want. And you notice how this vest is soft enough to where it's just getting out of my way for whatever I want to do. So I actually think that is a really valuable thing. The head can look up quite a ways. And as you can see, there's actually a hinge in there that kind of allows it to do that. The vest kind of blocks it from going any more than that. And then he can look down quite a bit too. So he can really bury his chin in there. But the chin is so large that that's about all you can do. There's plenty of side to side. And since he doesn't have any hair, there's nothing like that to inhibit the head. Also, the arms can go up quite a ways, way over 90 degrees. And then they can go down to his sides fairly well. There's a little bit more room where maybe it could have got a little more snug. There is a swivel, and there is a double jointed elbow, and these work beautifully. There is a rotation at the wrist, and there is a hinge that you can get quite a bit of range with. For people's misgivings about some parts of the G.I. Joe classified line, I don't know. I don't think articulation is really something that you can be too critical about with these guys, because not only are these just as articulated as the Marvel Legends, they're actually quite a bit more articulated than Marvel Legends, with a whole lot more points than those have. Once again, on the hips, we have lots of cool magic going on here with drop-down hips, something that I didn't think that we would see in an American action figure line. I absolutely love that these things are so versatile because you can get crazy kicks like this because of the ability to drop down. It also means you can get straight up splits, no problem. And there is a rotation at the upper part of the thigh. There is a terrific little double joint there. Because his legs are a little bit thicker, you're not going to get anything too crazy, but I really do like the double jointed knees. There is a swivel at the boot, and there is a hinge and ankle pivot down here. That means you can get the widest stances you can pretty much imagine with him. So if you want to do something crazy, he will probably hold that pose. Look at that, first try, no problem. So let's look at Gung-Ho's accessories. One thing he comes with is this cool removable backpack. Really like this thing because not only does it look neat on the figure, but it's actually fairly practical. There's all these cool straps that are sculpted in, and there's lots of great little fine details with it too. This really was not just a throwaway thing that they just put on him for weapon storage. I mean, it actually looks really good, and there's kind of that rough canvas texture that's sculpted all in it. I mean, I think this is really a home run for them in terms of the sculpt. Now, I noted how it was practical just a moment ago, and the reason I say that is because this is actual weapon storage back here. And you can do it in a few different ways. So you can take the gun. This is kind of his shotgun, Nerf gun, whatever you want to call it. And you see how it's kind of flat right there. You can take that, and inside of these, you can just kind of push it in. And these aren't the most secure holds in the world. If you jiggle them around way too much, this probably will fall out. I've also noticed that the backpack can kind of work itself out of the peg back there because his vest is kind of thick, and it's trying to get through to the back. So you kind of have to watch out for that too. Also, you can take the other gun, and once again, you kind of go to this flat part there about like that, where they're side by side. Like I mentioned earlier, these don't hold in super securely. If there's a better way to do it, see, it just falls out. I'm not sure that I've found it. Maybe you could see if you try to put it like that, it doesn't really work. But down here, there's this little section. I'm probably not doing this right, but I know that you could probably kind of try to hang this on there like this, but it doesn't really stay on and it just falls right off. You could, I guess, take this gun and you could put it in there like this, and that holds much, much better. So these don't really hold in there too well, honestly, and that's a little disappointing that there wasn't anything a little more secure with that backpack. Doesn't matter to me very much that the backpack doesn't hold them too securely. It doesn't matter that much, but I really would have liked it if it was a little more secure, and I think it would have looked better on display. Now, the way it is, these will probably be falling out the whole time. Maybe I did it wrong. Maybe there was something I was missing, but it seems like I just wasn't having much luck. If I was doing something wrong, just let me know in the comments. All right, let's move on to something a little less cumbersome. And that's just the guns that Gung-Ho comes with. First off, we'll talk about what I guess is like a facsimile, a sci-fi facsimile for a pump action kind of shotgun. You see the pump down here. There's kind of the ridges up there. There's some cool little details right there, like some texture. There's some marbling going on in the plastic. I'm sure that's unintentional, but I don't know. It doesn't really bother me that much. Other side, same kind of thing happening. A little bit of marbling and a few little bolts here and there. I really like this thing. Some people have an issue with kind of the more science fiction sort of weapons, but honestly, G.I. Joe was shooting laser guns in the 80s, guys. It'll be all right if it doesn't look like they have a submachine gun and a pump-action shotgun. I mean, really. By the way, these apparently are just Nerf guns. Apparently people have like visual guides made where Hasbro is just kind of crossing over their Nerf gun designs without the kind of flamboyant colors and just using them as the G.I. Joe classified weapons. And you know what? That's awesome in my opinion. So I think it's great. Oh well. Here's another one that he comes with. And this looks to be more of like a laser rifle of some sort. And once again, this is just following like a Nerf kind of look for the gun. I think it's interesting how the handle is all the way up here and back here. This almost looks like some kind of clip or magazine. No, it's not removable. It would have been cool if it was removable. But guys, you know, this is a $20 mass market figure. So I don't think we can expect too much of that kind of thing going on. And the last gun you get is this awesome grenade launcher. I saved my favorite one for last. I actually love how this thing looks. Not only is there this cool kind of casing up here, but there's this huge barrel. And unfortunately it doesn't turn, but like I said, this is $20 figure kind of weapons right here. This isn't, you know, your Mezco kind of quality. I love the little holes up there. I don't know much about guns, so, you know, I'm sure there's some kind of gun aficionado that could tell me exactly what caliber of Nerf dart launcher this is. I actually just think it's cool. And you know what? To me, that's all that matters. If the gun looks cool, if the weapons are neat for the figures, that's all that matters to me. All right, time to do some comparisons with Gung-Ho here. And we're going to start out just by looking at some of the classified figures themselves. As you can see, they're all in the background here, so we may as well just pull them up. So first we have Destro here, and he's a pretty big figure, but honestly, he's kind of dwarfed a little bit by Gung-Ho, and I kind of like that. I actually think that Gung-Ho should be, you know, kind of the guy that Cobra fears. So I think that works out really nicely. We'll put Destro back here, and we will then bring out Roadblock. So if you have a look at good old Marvin Hinton here, you can see that they're just right in scale with each other. Of course, check it out. It's very obvious that they're using practically the exact same body, and they should, of course, be right in the same scale. I like how Gung-Ho is so huge, and Snake Eyes is a little more in that petite kind of height range. It's a really cool visual. They still look like they could be guys in the same team. Next up, we have Storm Shadow, and of course, G.I. Joe fans will know that this is the redeemed Storm Shadow, for if you're looking at the original line, that is. And this is G.I. Joe Storm Shadow, who led the Ninja Force, and I think they look terrific together. Next up, we have Scarlet. We'll just put her right here. Cobra Commander's in the mail, y'all, so I'm sorry there's no Cobra Commander as comparison, but there'll be a review very soon. There'll be a review by the beginning of next week. So these two look great together. Love it. I love the kind of bright primary colors of Scarlet with the more muted colors of Gung-Ho. This is the color, man. This is what it's always about for me with my display. I love for G.I. Joe to have all those colors going on. If it's just totally muted, it's not interesting to me. All right, next up, we have my custom Sergeant Slaughter. And if you remember in my custom video, if you've not checked it out, please do so. It's in the links below. But in my custom video for Sarge, I talked about how when this figure came out, this would be a terrific base for a custom Sergeant Slaughter figure. And you know what? I've ordered another one of these guys because I want to try it, and I definitely want to do a 2.0 kind of updated version of my Sergeant Slaughter custom video. So I'm very excited about that. And these two guys, they look great together. Just because it's fun. Here he is beside of the 50th anniversary Gung-Ho figure. You know, it's funny. This figure is really big compared to the other regular 3 3/4 G.I. Joe scaled figures. But it's funny, you put him beside this guy and that all goes away because you're looking at a practically 7-inch scale figure. And because it's really funny, I love the Mega Marines. I don't know about you guys. I know that I may be in the minority of fans there, but I love G.I. Joe Mega Marines. That is the subset that came out in the early 90s for G.I. Joe, where they were in these bright primary colors and they hunted these gigantic monsters. And Gung-Ho was the leader of the Mega Marines. And it is so funny to think that these two guys are the same character. I sort of love it. I really do. Hasbro, are you fearless enough to do an update of Mega Marines, Gung-Ho? Are you fearless enough? Can you do it? I dare you to do it. I dare you to. Please, God, please do it. If you really want to have fun with this figure, there's only one option, okay? And I'm talking to the most hardcore, elitist G.I. Joe fans out there. You know what you have to do, right? I shouldn't even have to tell you what you have to do. you got to bring out the Mega Monsters, baby. Just bring them out. There we go. Both of your Mega Monsters right here. You know what? These are pretty cool looking together. I realize that he's kind of big for them. But honestly, the Mega Monsters, if they weren't like squat and they weren't kind of like hunched over, they would be practically like 6-inch scaled figures. So even though they'd still be a little too short for Gung-Ho, I don't know. You can kind of do some cool stuff with it. I mean, this is the leader of the Mega Marines, so if you want him to fight the Mega Monsters, this is your perfect opportunity. Looking at the outrageous Cajun Marine, Gung-Ho, is he worth it? You better believe he's worth it. For $20, I cannot imagine a better pickup for a basic action figure that's on the shelves in America today. Gung-Ho is maybe the one that I was looking forward to the very most out of Series 2 of G.I. Joe Classified. And I'm serious. This guy just packs it all in. I think that anybody who is any sort of fan of classic G.I. Joe will be able to instantly recognize who this is. I think that he's so much fun, and he represents so much of what's great about the character while still updating it with more of that modern kind of video gamey look that I think Classified is going for. I really do think that they finally found that perfect balance between the more outrageous colors and the more muted, realistic military look. Really, Gung-Ho is less akin to Fortnite, and I'm not crazy over the Fortnite comparisons people keep making with Classified, but I do think he is more akin to like a Halo character. I mean, he really is. And I think that that's a much more acceptable kind of visual for G.I. Joe fans, especially classic fans like myself. I think that we're more into this sort of look for a modern iteration of something like a Gung-Ho. And so, do I suggest him? Yes, and I'll go even further. I think that I suggest him more than just about any other figure in the line. I think he and Destro are pretty close in terms of how great they are at being modern representations of these classic characters. And that works really well for me because it just so happens Destro is my favorite G.I. Joe villain of all time. And Gung-Ho has to be in my like top 3 or 4 G.I. Joe characters. So thank you, Hasbro. You are certainly playing to what I like anyway about the brand. But this is just terrific, guys. I don't know what else to say about him. Get out there, get him. I know that he is shipping right now from Amazon, and he is coming much earlier than anybody expected. Originally, the ship date was in November, and guys, it's not even September, and I got this guy in. Anyway, guys, that's all from me. And listen, I am so appreciative that you decided to spend your time watching this G.I. Joe review. If you enjoy our G.I. Joe content, it's something that we really want to get into even more deeply here on the channel, whether that be the original 3 3/4 figures, the updated 3 3/4, or the new G.I. Joe 6-inch Classified series. Tell us below if you'd like to see more. We do want the channel to kind of branch out more into G.I. Joe because it's one of my favorite things in the whole world. So guys, be safe out there. God bless you, and listen, I'll see you on Fanboys Forever. Yo, Joe.